Thermocouples come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. This small one is a 1/16 stainless steel. I'm going to use it to get down to the nozzle area. These two bigger ones are 1/4 inch. I use these, they're 1/8 inch, and a standard plumbing compression fitting will work to install them. This is an L shape. It's good for tight places. They come with a compression fitting that makes them adjustable, and they'll go in pretty far, not as far as these long ones. They're all have 2 wires. That's what a thermocouple is. But the wires are 2 dissimilar metals that are joined together at the tip. And the dissimilar metals is what produces the DC voltage. When you hook these up, you have to have the same type of thermocouple with the connecting wire and the readout. There's type J and K are the most common. T and E. You can see the temperature ranges. We use a lot of Ks because they are relatively inexpensive. They'll go up to 2282 degrees Fahrenheit, unless they're made of poor materials. There's some J's around, but K's pretty much what we stick with. They are color coded. In a type K, the yellow wire is positive, the red wire is negative. A little bit different than conventional electronics. This type has the tight seal weatherproof case, and I don't know if you can see it's red and white. It's a type J. I picked these up at the sawmill that was being scrapped out, and they look brand new. I hated to let it go, but I don't think I'll use them. The rest of these are all type Ks. These are Omegas. They come with a connector on them, and they're marked plus and minus. They also come with the mating connector. It's marked plus and minus. You can take it apart and put the wire in there. The 1/4 inch, this is the one I'm going to use on my grate. I'm just going to use a standard plumbing 1/4 inch compression fitting. Go into the barrel, weld a nipple on the barrel here, and then this will stick in almost to the center of the grate, about 1 inch above the grate, and that'll be my grate thermocouple. Say these little 1/16 come with a stainless. They don't come with a stainless steel fitting, but you can buy a 1/16 compression, 1/8 pipe thread, and the thing here is that they're very flexible. You can, if you're gentle, you can put them where you want to, and so that's what I'm going to use to reach down in on the fins and on the nozzle. These two here I use out in other areas of the gas fire to keep track. But these will all go up to 2,000 degrees. The grate typically runs 1600. And one of the questions that people have, and one of the things that can get you in trouble with these, is whether they are grounded thermocouples or ungrounded. If you take an ohm meter, and these little cheap ones from Harbor Freight will work as good as anything, put it on the ohm scale. 200 is the least setting. And what that means is you can measure 200 ohms full scale. With the leads not touching, there's infinite resistance between the leads, and so you get a 1. That means it's over range. A short, in this case, is less than 1 ohm, and that just demonstrates the accuracy. These are not terribly accurate meters, but you can tell that's a short and that's an open circuit. And so what you need to do, if you buy a thermocouple like this one I bought from Omega, it was right at $50, you specify I want it grounded or I want it ungrounded. The thermocouple itself has about 10 ohms, 10 or 20 ohms of resistance in it, depending. This one's only got 2. It must be pretty big wire down in there. But here's the kicker. You can check between either lead and the case, and it ought to be infinite resistance, no continuity. And that is the case, I believe, on this 1/16 I bought on eBay as, new old stock, but it's ungrounded, and most times people will specify. Now these little ones here, They're real handy. They come with a curly cord. They fit a 1/8 compression fitting connector. It's a miniature connector, but you can easily find the mate to it. They have about 19 ohms resistance, but if you measure from either connector to the case, you see they are shorted 10 ohms. And so that's the ones that give you trouble with some of the readouts. And I'll go into that in the next video. So these cheap ones from China, if they don't say ungrounded, then they're probably grounded. With the exception of this here. This one, it's about an $18, $20 thermocouple. Johnny Claudio discovered these. Say 22 ohms on the thermocouple, but from either lead to the case is open circuit. These are not grounded, and so they work real well with those inexpensive readouts that we like to use. So that gives you a breakdown what to look for. You know, these little meters are less than $10 on Harbor Freight or some other places. On the lowest ohm scale, they will show you just exactly whether you have a grounded or ungrounded thermocouple. If when you're using type K thermocouple, yellow, red, you have to buy thermocouple wire to hook up to it, and you need to use the connectors that are made for this. Yeah, you can see that. That is type K wire. I'll run it into these connectors, plug in my thermocouple, run this wire all the way up to the readout on the dashboard, and oh, it's not as cheap as plain copper wire, but you have to have it. A type K thermocouple, the two wires that are fused together, twisted together to make the thermocouple, one of them is chromel and one's alumel, and that describes the alloy of the material of the two wires that go together to make the thermocouple. And every one of these, a type J is iron constantan, a type T is copper constantan, chromel constantan. Any two dissimilar metals will produce a voltage based on temperature. These here are just the most common, and the ones we use. You can see a type K thermocouple, temperature versus voltage out, it's very linear. But at 1,000 degrees, and that's centigrade, at 1,000 degrees, they're only putting out about 50, 75 millivolts. That's 75 thousandths of a volt. And so you won't be reading it with these kind of meters, but you can read it with those digital readouts. That's what they're made for. So we'll talk about them in the next video.